many more than the past year. We were so few last year, and I'm happy because now we have the opportunity to attend the festival in presence. The return of the state, companies, community, institutions. This is a very burning issue. We'll soon understand the reason why. This is another successful edition, a success which has never been discontinued, not even during the difficult times of the pandemic. We have been living together for 14 months with the COVID. Thanks to vaccination campaign, at last, this virus is no longer appearing as a terrible enemy as we used to be in the past. But we need to have vaccines against prejudices, i.e. that of inequalities. I'd like to welcome the mayor, who is here for the second time. He had just been elected last year. And you yourself said the festival is precious. It's like a vaccine against a closed mind. So thank you very much for being here to represent such a distinguished city. We have many international experts who give an international dimension to this meeting. You have the floor, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I am indeed really more convinced than in the past that these 4 days are a real vaccine against a closed mind. We know that state and market are complementary. I'm very happy because Trento has found again the opportunity to meet in the festival. That was not to be taken for granted. Till some weeks ago, we were concerned and we were afraid of having to meet online once and again. So seeing the city who is open again, the joy of those who work in the HoReCa sector, those who can host the guests, and that further stimulates the desire to start again. I was elected a mayor at the end of September last year, so I myself experienced the coming back of the state. Indeed, the central government had to pass a number of decrees in order to act and fight. The theme was we had no public funds enough, so we had to work on private money. For a number of reasons, we today have a recovery and resilience fund at national level, envisaging a new railway passing through the city with a view to the next 100 years. That has been made possible with the support of private capital. I think that all communities can well appreciate what are the subjects of the theme. We are here, like in a laboratory, to discuss many important issues. I remember what TITO BOERI said when we presented the festival. Sometimes we are nasty. Some say that authoritarian government performed better than democracies. Just have a look at what's going on in India. I'm not saying that because we are glad, but it's a real disaster. We all know that we have a transition period to go through. We have to understand together what is that, so that nobody is left behind, as our Prime Minister said. Transition with everybody on board. I make reference to what you said when you introduced the program. You said, indeed, we really need the festival this year to understand the difference and the border between public and private sector. We know that the state is precious when it offers infrastructures and services, but in the private sector, each one of us will have to find a new role and a new space. This is something new for individuals. Those who have white hair indeed witnessed that during the wars, the world wars, which had so many victims everywhere, as the pandemic is having many victims all over the world. That's a great opportunity to ask questions, not only on the economy, but also to find a different approach to the community altogether. Yes. This is an international festival, so indeed we are proud to have the festival here. In this bipolarity between state and market, well, this is a land where cooperation was born, where social enterprises were born. So thinking about a state and market is very important. Then we have community. We'll come back to the idea of community with the president of the province of Trento. And I want the president to conclude the first three presentations. But before, I'd like to welcome the new dean of the University of Trento. You come from a different perspective. You are one of the promoters and not only an attendee of the festival. You have always followed the festival of a private citizen. Today, you are here on the stage among those people who promote and host the festival. The University of Trento is one of the pillars, is one of the hinges on which this prestigious meeting is based. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. This is my first time attending as a public person. I have always followed this meeting. It's a great opportunity to think over important subjects. Just think of the titles of the festival of the past, and you will immediately understand what has been said. Over the past 15 years, the University of Trento has always been a sponsor. We have always believed in the initiative. We want to continue to give our contribution, and we'll do that in the future. University is a place for critical thinking. The festival has always welcomed many different points of view. We've had very distinguished speakers, but we also have been able to speak to the whole community. There are many different users and attendees of the festival. Here we have high-level events with Nobel Prizes, economists, politicians. At the same time, we talk about very important social issues, which are not only for experts. I'm happy to see that the city is considering the festival like a sort of celebration. It's like a party. People come back and attend year after year. So we are very happy of that. These multiple levels of participation have been one of the reasons for success of the initiative. I today represent one of the institutions who has always supported the festival, and we strongly believe in that. We are really glad to support the festival. It's a moment of dialogue. It's important to hear many different opinions. Many different opinions can be heard at the festival, and exactly the opposite of those opinions. It's for everyone. You said that the university has also experienced difficult times with a lockdown, with distance learning, which has in a way impaired the autonomy. This is one of the key elements which will be debated in these 4 days, such as freedom, autonomy, and dialogue with other entities, which are getting more and more important, and some who have to make decisions on behalf of other subjects. Was that difficult? Was it difficult to come out from the emergency? Yes, indeed. It has been difficult for everyone, in particular for students. They have experienced something new. That has been difficult for the teachers, for the clerical staff, for everybody who had to invent a new way of teaching. We had distance learning. We tried to do our best. It was an emergency situation. We also suffered for the limitations like all citizens. We were used to autonomy and the idea of self-government, and we had to live in a situation where we were not deciding. But we were all together, united, not only professors and staff, but also students. They all accepted the new situation. Indeed, they could have suffered, but they accepted that. Now we are looking forward. We made many major steps forward with the vaccines, and we hope we will be able to have our classes with all the students in. We don't know what are the reactions of students. We don't know about the conditions, but regardless of the constraints that will be imposed by the government and by ourselves, because safety and security is key, but we want to give the sign that things are going on. The 1st of September 2021 is not like the year before. And indeed, we are more and more protected. Thank you very much, Mr. Dean. Mr. President, the province of Trento had to come to terms with a rather invasive state. I really like the idea of synergy that you mentioned when you said that the central government, the regions, and the group of EUREGIO, the European Union, and local institutions and community, all of them have to work together to produce the sparkle which will relaunch the economy and the society at large. We are here to look and work on collaboration. Is it a moment of peace and agreement? Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome you all. I'd like to welcome the distinguished guests. We have to be practical in this time. And the festival is something practical. We see people here, they are reality, they are real. People around are real. You mentioned the sparkle and EUREGIO. A few days ago, at the Brenner Pass, we signed an agreement on trans-border energy between Tyrol, South Tyrol, hence Austria and Italy. That is being practical and concrete. That goes beyond the chatting, the theories, the ideas, the ideals, but now we have concrete, practical things. In Trento and in the Trentino, we today have something practical. I mean, it was not to be taken for granted that we could have had the festival offline. 1 month ago, we decided to do that. Indeed, we were not positive about the situation of COVID 1 month after. But that was courageous on part of the city, of the province, and of the festival. Indeed, the willingness of organizers was very clear. I'm watching TITO BOERI, GIUSEPPE, LATERZA, INNOCENZO, CIPOLLETTA. sitting in front of me. We had the festival online last year. That was good, but being offline is very important, notwithstanding the constraints and the masks and so on. I mean, so the idea that we give outside is that we are innovative and we were courageous to do that. And it is also good for a restart. This area lives on tourism, thanks to the collaboration with other communities. So the message we send out today is of being practical and concrete, something we achieved. And what about the interview published on the newspapers by Maria Gelmini, the Minister for Regional Affairs? She's very reconciling, also in terms of availability of funds. As you said in the first question, the relationship between the government and the regions, indeed, we had to decide whether to open or lock down, and there was a sort of iron arm, and we indeed decided to give up our autonomy in the hands of the state. That was not final or definitive. But that was for the emergency. The province of Trento is an autonomous one, and we continue to be autonomous. As for the financial resources, indeed, regions have to be heard, listened, involved, and they have to be part of the choices which are made. But not all the territories, not all the regions have the same ability to spend well the resources. If the resources are distributed in a balanced way and are given to those who can spend them well, that's good. If this does not happen, well, there is a risk that resources are allocated and not spent. In Italy, different mechanisms are implemented for the projects. Sometimes projects are there and money are not given. There are areas having the money and they have difficulties in spending. So we have to reconcile the ability to make projects. And the project of Trento and the province of Bolzano, who are autonomous, have this ability. We have to say that loudly. Thank you very much. I want to ask you to say an adjective. We have had 15 editions. Do you want the festival to be inclusive, stimulating? What do you expect from the festival, Mr. Mayor? It's going to be fantastic. Thank you. And it will, with an exclamation mark. Dean of the university, I would say innovative. We have to make a change. The times have been difficult. We need something new. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Courageous so far. Thank you very much. Thank you to the representatives of the three promoters, the City of Trento, Autonomous Province of Trento, University of Trento. Now we change the speakers. Sorry if I ask you to go down the stage. This is because of distancing. And so thank you very much. And while someone comes up to sanitize the chairs, thank you, congratulations. I'd like to give you some figures. Now we are sanitizing, and then we'll have all the other speakers. The partners, Intesa San Paolo, Scientific Director, and LATERZA, who indeed has planned this format and is very successful. In the 15 years, well, we had great successes. If you visit the website, it tells Without Borders, because half of the speakers, and many of them are coming from abroad, are international speakers of great prestige. We'll have 5 Nobel Prizes. Now we have Innocenzo Cipolletta, who can come up, the coordinator of the publishing committee, Mr. LATERZA, and then Gregorio De Felice, who is the head of economists at Intesa Sanpaolo, who has been a partner for 15 years, and Tito BOERI. Let's join your hands. Thank you very much for being so relentless in your work. You really worked hard. And in the editions, we had 2,078 speakers, with 27 lectures by Nobel Prizes, 350,000 participants in presence, 56 million connections to the website. These are great figures indicating that this festival is able to attract a very large audience and not only experts in economics. That means that the festival is widely known by people who want to cultivate and enlarge their horizons. Mr. Cipolletta, you explained that at the end of every edition, the new theme is conceived. And this is what you did in 2020. So you immediately realized that that would have been a key theme. So this is a coming back of the state, but not striking.
In September last year, the pandemic was still raging, and the state had already been quite present, forcefully coordinating vaccination. And if I may, let me just remind you that we're talking about the state, not just recalling the capital cities such as Rome or Madrid, but all the collectivity, all the provinces, all the regional authorities had taken the lead because they were driving out of the pandemic, so with vaccinations. The state had also contributed to integrated wages, guaranteeing loans for those who had lost their business. So the activity of the state had certainly been playing a very big role, with somebody experiencing the threat of the state coming back, attaching or affecting our personal sphere, not just economics, but our daily lives. And it came out automatically to think about devoting a whole edition to the state activity. Not as if it were the comeback of the state, as if a threat, but an ideology came to the fore that was due also to the technology, so much so that the private spheres gained ground. Because of the pandemic, the state got back, because perhaps we had, for example, exposed our weaknesses too much. So we are now going back to some universal dimension. We thought that redundancy was okay for workers, but obviously this is not good for all the workers. There are many other workers that get no cover. Then healthcare, of course, is important, and that is most important for all, not just for those who can who have a job, but also those who don't have a job. So now I think that there's a time when the state has to play a bigger role. There are times when the state has to play a less important role. Certainly the state and the market are mutually supplementary. So, of course, when the market comes to the fore, then the state goes back, and now is a time for the state placing a bigger role as a provider of essential services, first and foremost. Of course, indeed, we shall be reminded that the reduction of inequalities is not something that you can pursue through the fiscal system, through taxation. This is only a marginal role being played. by taxes. Indeed, most of the differences, of the inequalities, are in a way bridged by good services. If you have a free-for-all education, a free-for-all public health system, a free-for-all system finding jobs, some kind of support to find an accommodation, and perhaps some social security, these are all the role being played by the state. And that is certainly what may bridge the gap and flatten out differences. This is the important role to be played by the state, so that the state becomes cohesive, so that everybody can be equal. I'm looking at Mr. De Felice because I'm thinking about our perception. Obviously, we look at such things as Italian, but all states, not just Italy, the Italian government played an important role during the pandemic. So much has changed, and some constraints has also been raised to the freedom of citizens, not just in Italy, but in Europe at large. And then we've seen other countries such as Brazil, India, where there are imperfect democracies, if we may say so. This has been managed with a certain degree of superficiality, with not imposing constraints on what the public does. But as far as Europe is concerned, what do you think is changing in Europe? And as to the role of the state, is the state playing a bigger role? Is there going to be a bigger role to be played by the market? What do you think? Well, I believe that a situation such as the one that we're going through, it is important for the state to play an active role to manage the emergency situation. We've seen that a lot of money has been spent worldwide. Some $16 trillion have been spent by the public authorities, and that has happened in with a high degree of diversity worldwide. Europe has not been the biggest spender, but I believe that under certain conditions, as the one we're going through, the state has to act timely, in a proportionate manner, and with effectiveness, because this obviously creates or paves the way to a competition among and between states in managing the pandemic. Let's look at the US, for example. The US started off very poorly, and they recovered importantly with the vaccines. What has been the effect of the pandemic on Europe? Well, that has brought up an important innovation. Next Generation EU represents the first time when there is a transfer among and between US member countries, with the redistribution of the public debt, and with a bigger role being played by the authorities. So much so that European authorities are telling to the member countries that we shall proceed jointly towards a double transition, the environmental transition and the digital transition. So a question that we might raise is as follows. Can the market by itself do likewise? Would it have been the same without the authorities playing such an important role? Well, certainly the public authorities have been playing a very important role, and they've been being quite generous in doing so. And, when money is contributed, obviously objectives can be reached and pursued more easily. What about Italy? At a historical point in time, how do you think that Italy can play a greater role, be a key player on the European scene? Well, I believe that with Next Generation EU being a program devised a lot for Italy. Italy and Spain used to be two member countries that have been worstly affected by the pandemic. But one of the major gap in the European project is that it never succeeded to European economic convergence among the member countries. Italy is often lagging behind when it comes to recovery, looking at the list of European member countries. So I believe that behind the Next Generation EU plan, there's an important plan to support Italy, Italy being the biggest spender, the greater beneficiary, but Italy obviously has to do its share. If Italy is successful, the recovery plan is successful, well then this will be good for all the Italian, and it will push the European integration further, importantly. European authorities otherwise might say, we did all we could, and the greatest beneficiary only contributed minimally. Then if that happens, obviously there's not going to be as a stronger conviction in supporting Europe. Now, trying to have the European market for capitals and the banking union, well, that will certainly be important advantages. 3-4% is the growth as anticipated by European authorities in terms of growth of the GDP. Do you think that there's enough for European investors to pin their hopes in Italy? Well, a growth by 3 to 4% is quite an easy achievement this year. What is important is what shall happen in 2025. What's that? Because in 2025 we shall have completed all the recovery plan and the reforms enabling Italy to have a greater potentials for growth and will be completed so as to come closer to the average German growth. Before the COVID, Germany grew by 1.6, 1.7, and Italy grew only by 0.5 and 6. Well, this is a huge gap, which is not due to the incapability of our business people and entrepreneurs, but because it is due to the fact that our economic system is not allowing for competition, but the legal system is very slowed down. The public administration is not focused on the entrepreneurial community, and this in a way prevents us from fully exploiting a huge potential that we have with our young people, with our women. All that potential goes untapped. You're very right. Indeed, great attention should be devoted to both young people and women. And Tito BOERI is going to tell us about the events that are devoted to the streamlining of bureaucracy, to the involvement of other classes, so that we shall have opportunities during the next few days of thinking about this major focus. Now, I'd like to address Giuseppe LATERZA. Together with Mr. CIPOLLETTA, Mr. LATERZA has been organizing this wonderful event. I'm looking at Mr. LATERZA because this is not just GDP which is increasing. Even a greater number of books are being read. I know that President Mattarella is fully aware of the fact that Italians have invested heavily on their culture during this difficult year. When we were locked up in our homes, we probably felt a greater need, an urgency to learn more, to study more. And this is why this event is going to be so innovative. So not only do we perceive this need for more books, not only is this the opportunity to relaunch the publishing business, because there are there's fiction, there's essays, there are many groups of books that are being sold, and these opportunities are opportunity for speculation and reflection. So this is a major challenge that we have to come up. Well, thank you. First and foremost, I think that President Mattarella was not praising the publishing houses, but he was praising Italian citizens, because looking at the list of books that we had published during the last century. And he said that during the pandemics, and at the beginning Italians weren't reading, but during the pandemics people went back to reading, in Italy especially. And at the end of the year, a greater number of the great number of books was read during the pandemics because there's a need for learning. There's a huge need for learning, and this is what our president has said. And hopefully this is going to be experienced over the next few years as well. Well, I believe that many people who came to the festival right from the very first edition, all the people who sit here, were quite taken aback by the great success this festival experienced right from the beginning. And though we had planned having 150 people, and over 1,500 came. So we had to go to the auditorium, and this, what has been happening consistently over the years, a greater number of listeners came, and people are certainly asking for more information and for greater rigor. The mayor said that we had to consider the combination of state and market and the idea of community being a very important word now. And the dean of the university talked about innovation, and this is a key word again. This is a buzzword because if there's no innovation being brought about by speculation, then there is no growth. And Fugatti referred to consistency and courage. Well, I believe that under conditions as the ones that we're experiencing today, we have to look ahead to the future. Gregorio de Felice just said that we have to look ahead to the 2025. Certainly, the number of jabs is important. The number of vaccines is important. But the decisions that are being taken today, the decisions that are being made today is important not just for us, but for our children. And this is exactly the subject matter of the next few days. We're certainly going to hear about the present, but we are greatly focused on what is about to happen in the next 10, 15 years. We're going to talk about the taxation system, about the relationship between autonomous regions and different local authorities and central authorities. At the beginning, we all agreed that we all can shape our own ideas. And as a publisher, I try to be liberal and plural, and I believe that this is the greatest contribution that we can give to democracy. A major economist and a philosopher, Amartya Sen, an economist and a philosopher, let me stress that, he said that democracy can be measured on the quality of the public debate. There are fictitious democracies where fake elections are held, and that is no democracy. There can't be any democracy unless there's a good and vibrant public debate that has to be rigorous, of course, as the one that we have been trying to develop here at the festival. And this indeed has been met by great success. I've looked at the contacts at the visits at the hits of all that was published during the past few months. And that proved that there is a strong desire for knowing, for learning. So there's a lot of curiosity, not just on the side of economists. This is certainly a great success of the Mr. BOERI. Mr. BOERI, during the press conference, has been praised for his vision in identifying also the key players and the key speakers. So in his international relations, as it were, he has this incredible vision. He may anticipate those who prove to be the brightest stars. Now, when it comes to young people, let me stress something, i.e. the competition for secondary schools. Many students have been involved into this competition despite the homeschooling, and let us recall what that is. Well, let me stress that this is a festival of the people of Trento. The people of Trento are involved in the initiatives, are the ones who raise the issues, are the ones who meet the speakers, and it is utter joy to see the public in the in the theatre. Unfortunately, we shan't have 1,500 people because that's something that the pandemic wouldn't allow us to have. But we can have a limited number of people, but seeing people is something that is the greatest joy. Because, when you look up at the faces of people, you can see their reactions, the way they react to what is being said. Now, with reference to what you were saying to the secondary school, it is with great pride that I may say now that we held the competition pretty much the same we did before the pandemic. So despite homeschooling, we had over 100 schools being involved in this competition. And we've seen top quality commitment, and we're going to award the winners of this competition as we did in previous editions. In Italian secondary school, we talk much more about economics than we might think. And we cover subjects that are not banal at all, as the subject matter, which is going to be the food of our meetings today. As Fugatti, as DEFLORIAN and the previous speakers said before me, we're always tackling very tangible, very hard-on matter. The festival has never been just philosophical speculation. Indeed, very practical subjects are tackled with an attempt to provide solutions. We try and see the way economists think that at times leave some questions open, but all the time we can shape also political decisions before they are made. And I believe that the festival is an opportunity also to see how economists look at things. Here at the festival, I have been voicing criticism against my own profession. You probably remember the trial against economists. There had been self-criticism that we leveraged against ourselves after the major financial crisis. And let me make a couple of comments when it comes to the commitment on the part of the economists on what happened. There has been a strong commitment to try and find solutions to the pandemic. Indeed, the pandemic is not just an issue for epidemiologists, for virologists, for those who had to provide more scientific contribution to the shaping the action on the part of the government. There have also been a major role being played by social scientists. And indeed, we were all very much committed to that. COVID Economic is a new journal of economics that has been published 80 issues, speculating all the social aspect connected to the pandemics. An important contribution has been provided to shaping the economic politics decisions. Now, insofar as the lives of economists is concerned, well, I believe that over the years, this festival has shown that there are different ways to be an economist. People might think that economists are bankers, are businessmen, are the accountants, and these certainly are all people with a background in economics. This is certainly true. This economics, indeed, is background that is shared by many people playing different roles, the accountants, as the bankers, and alike. But there is another way to be an economist, and that is the social economist, the work that you do next to people. Let me, for example, let me remind you of a person that has a background in economics that worked as an economist, Luca Attanasio, the Italian ambassador to Congo, who got killed this year, he was trained as an economist, and he has always looked at his job as an economist combining the public sphere and the private sphere. And this is another important aspect of this festival. There's no confrontation between public and private. There's no winners and vanquished. We are working on the cooperation between public and private, the same cooperation that brought about a true miracle. I wouldn't know how to term it otherwise. If you just think about what was happening 1 year ago, if you had asked about vaccine to the top expert, nobody would have anticipated what we actually had. Nobody would expect that a year ago. Nobody was expecting that we would have one vaccine. Everybody would have been totally taken aback if you were to say that one vaccine, two vaccine, three vaccine had approved. Only 2% of the top experts worldwide would say that we would have one vaccine. As a matter of fact, we have more than 3 now, and you know that a sufficient amount of vaccines are being produced to vaccine large parts of the continent. And this is the combination of public financing and private initiative. 5 more minutes. Let me... Now, before Mr. Cipolletta leaves us, he has to leave, and the festival, in my mind, is going to be young and entertaining. So this is... so we anticipate something light and not difficult. Oftentimes, economics lead us into thinking about something difficult and complicated. And what about you, Mr. De Felice? How would you term the festival, this edition of the festival? You are part of that group of bankers that rule the economy. What do you think that this festival is going to be? Well, bankers think about the future for our children as well. So your question is about how would you term this festival? What would you wish this festival to be for this edition and the next ones? Well, I sincerely wish that Italy will see economic growth, the bridging of social inequalities, and new possibilities for our young people. Thank you. I believe this focus on young people is certainly very important. As a journalist, I saw that those who were worst hit in the pandemics were again young people and women. Many women had to forgo their jobs, they've been left out of the labour market, and the same is true for young people who may enjoy very few opportunities. We talked about that also with Mr. LATERZA, also as parents and not just as professionals. And we were thinking about what we can do for our children, and we can try and open up the horizons for that and make them learn as much as possible. On Saturday, Paolo Profeta and Lila Laura Sabatini, as coordinated by Tiziana Ferrario, a colleague of yours, are going to talk about gender inequalities and public policies on Saturday next. Let me talk about a community once again. The festival is the result of an effort by many people. If I may, I'd like to ask President Fugatti to quote just one person, Marilena De Francesco. And I would like to invite you all to put your hand together for the team, for her team. Marilena De Francesco has been following us together with her team right from the first edition. Without them, we could have many nice ideas, but we would never have the festival as we know it. We would never have had such a lively experience, meeting up new people, exchanging ideas, where everything seemed smooth because there was a team and a woman. So let me thank just one person, and this year has been very difficult. And let me thank and acknowledge the work of Mrs. De Francesca and her team, because women are problem solvers, that they are used to solving many issues. So they are empathic, they're problem solver, and they know how to work as a team. Now, let me go back to Tito BOERI. Mr. BOERI has something very interesting. He has a very interesting meeting with Commissioner Gentiloni. He started off working early in the morning, and he will continue to do so with many ideas, with many different players. Is there anything that you'd like to highlight? Let me say that whenever, if I name one, I'll forget another one. I do something wrong. So I believe that all events are equally important. There's one event that I'd like to point out that we added to our program that is not in the program, which is going to be held tomorrow at 8 p.m. And is going to be a speculation on fiscal justice. Indeed, reference has been made in our country, in Italy, to the inheritance tax. We talked about that with Mr. Gentiloni, and there is an important initiative underway to tax capital rather than labor, so to tax the capital of major corporations working on the web, and to those who are paying less taxes because they enjoy holding their companies in tax havens. There are no losers that have been generated by the pandemic, whereas others had enjoyed important gains because they had invested on trading online. So, and also with vaccine, there's some inequalities being created. So we're going to talk about vaccines, not just with the Nobel laureate, Professor Kramer. He has worked at length. His book on the vaccine dates back to 2004. So this is a subject that he has been tackling for years. And he's going to talk with Rino Rappuoli, who runs a company manufacturing vaccines. So this is going to be a very hands-on discussion. So if I may, let me ask you, what is going to be your festival like? I hope it's going to be useful. This is how I would term it. I hope it is going to be useful for those who make decisions. We're going to be more than half of the councils of ministers. So there are people who may certainly heed our suggestions and forge their decisions and shape their decisions based on what is being said here. So these are all people that are going to guide the action of the government. What is important is to start on data to base your decision. You know, this is what economists provide. Economists provide data, so we provide such data to the decision makers so that they guide their action on these scientific evidence. And I believe that this is very much the basis of democracy. I'm looking at the logo of this event. And I hope that the festival is bright as the orange, informative, and sly as the little animal represented in the logo. So enjoy the 16th edition of the festival that we've been just inaugurating. So enjoy the conferences.